Yes, done.
Very warm welcome to Mr. Rajiv Agarwal, Managing
Thank
Director
you.
and CEO of Essar Ports. Mr. Agarwal is an old friend and supporter and well-wisher of our organization, and we are very happy that he's able to join us today. We're recording this because he's likely to be in UK on the day of the conference, and greatly appreciate his sparing the time. As you all know, Mr. Agarwal has been leading and spearheading Essar Ports business for the last almost, I think, more than a decade now. And the capacity has almost tripled, if I'm not mistaken, under his tutelage. And a number of projects he's been instrumental in setting up, whether it's a Greenfield 20 MMPTA dry bulk terminal in Salaya, whether it was a 24 MMPTA and terminal in Visakhapatnam port, etc. He has been in the port sector now for more than a decade, but he's also held earlier on senior level positions in other sectors as well, including telecom, BPO, and retail. He was, for example, instrumental in setting up startup companies such as the Mobile Store, Telecom Towers and Infrastructure Limited, also Aegis Communication, and importantly, was Chief Operating Officer at Essar Telecom when Essar was one of the pioneers in introducing cellular services in India. And in 2019, he received the Port Personality of the Year award by International Bulk Journal. And he is, of course, a member of many industry committees, CII, FICI, SHM, etc. And we are very pleased that he's able to join us today. This will be a question and answer session format, and I have 5 or 6 questions for him. And Mr. Agarwal, my first question is, what has been Essar Ports' recent experience with port and terminal operations?
Well, excellent. I think though we had some setback last year when, the COVID stuck, but then I think we as a country have taken very good care of our health as well as of the economy's health. Both, have done well. And I would say that the bounce back has been excellent. We were not at all sure when, the first COVID wave came that we will be able to bounce back in such a way. And in between, again, we had another wave and then the third wave. Luckily, this one, which is much more widespread, but still not that kind of severe. So I think business is going on, though there are some lockdowns, etc. But the numbers are looking good. The export numbers, especially in this year, India has seen a huge growth, and we expect that this trajectory will continue. So I think all in all, I feel that our customers have been doing well, so we have been doing well. So overall, it's been good. Also on the government's initiative side, which we will talk, I think, more in the coming questions. But overall, I think we're quite satisfied that the working is going on and things are moving in the right direction.
Okay. If I can ask you, what do you expect the industry growth to be for traffic this fiscal year and over the next few months and also next year?
Well, I think this year growth, the numbers that we have from the major ports is quite good. I think almost 17-18%, but then it was because of last year's drop. And so overall, the major ports are looking like growing at around 5 to 6% over the previous year, that is 1920. Yeah, which is a good bounce back. And they declined about 5% last year, or 10% last year, something like that. So I think they will bounce back, and modernization is going on, and we feel that with the initiatives which are there in coming years, I think we'll have much more efficient ports. It's not so necessary the new ports should come, in my view, though that also is welcome. But then I think we have enough capacity. Today we have 50% capacity utilization in general overall. Of course, there are certain ports which may have less and some more, but overall 50%. And with modernization and the initiatives of connectivity, etc., will probably be even better. And the quality of service is what we should be laying stress on, and the cost of transportation, overall transportation, which is probably 13% today. If we can target some 8 to 9% of the total costs of an industry, I think that's a good target which we are working on, all of us. And I think we are going in the right direction.
Mr. Agarwal, what are the challenges facing the sector, both as a result of COVID, but maybe even other long-standing challenges?
Yeah, so, I think a lot of steps have been taken by the government, like the Major Ports Act, the new, the agreements, etc. We're going forward. We are going to have, the long-standing demand of tariff deregulation has happened. But, the existing capacity which is there, which is a very large capacity, which is there in the major ports, and it contributes to most of the traffic which goes through the major ports, 54% of the total national capacity, is not still free from the tariff regulation. So I think that needs to be taken care of, because there the health of the industry is not very good, and we can do better, because the regulation is, then you'll have different regimes. The new people who are going to come, which will come in the next maybe 2-3 years, they will have deregulation. So this deregulation will actually take place, when new projects come to life. But before that, today, if you speak about it, the old projects are still stuck. So I think we have requested, and we would expect that there is a migration policy which can take us on to the flexibility of tariff, and which will be a win-win for both sides, where government revenues can also go up, because the percentage of revenue share can remain the same, and both sides will gain, and customer is also gain, because eventually it will reflect in the customer service. As you may know, that almost 50 to 55% of the total revenues of the port revenues that we charge goes to the government in some form or the other. Mm-hmm. In terms of the revenue share, GST, and then that other taxes, ground rent, etc. So in some cases can be more also, more than 50%, in 60-70% of the revenues go to the government. So I think it's a win-win for both sides. And apart from that, the infrastructure gets created, government's revenue go up, and customer service improves. So I think it is very important to see that the health of this existing set of terminal is taken care of. Apart from that, going forward for new growth, I want that today somehow I think the funnel for funding is kind of quite restricted. We don't have project funding any longer prevalent. Banks are not quite enthused about project funding, which used to be there earlier. Large projects were being set up. So now some kind of infrastructure funding institution needs to take shape. IFCL is one of them, but they are not really taking lead. So the lead is normally taken by some commercial bank, and the commercial banks are not getting into it. So there has to, government had announced some institution and had kept some fund for them. But then when will that see the light of the day? When will it come? And there's a huge amount of funding required in infrastructure space. So it is important that some kind of debt funding is made available to the industry, so that the private investment can kickstart and can move on in a fast pace in the infrastructure space. While government is doing their funding, they are putting up projects, and some projects may be coming where there is a growth or by internal accruals. But then a large amount of projects will start coming when there is funds, availability of funds for those projects. So that's very important. Third is that we also wanted that we should be treated like manufacturing industry, because we are basically servicing the manufacturing industry. So the new tax regime of 25% tax on corporate taxes should be applicable to the port industry also, or infrastructure industry also. So that is another thing that we would like, apart from this funding issue, which is a major issue.
Mr. Agarwal, connectivity used to be one of the challenges. Has that improved in the last few years?
Well, connectivity, yes, definitely is a challenge. Wherever there are, whether they're private ports or it is in the government ports, that is definitely one of the issues.
But has it improved? Has it improved? The government claims to have done a great deal in the last few years.
Yeah, I think it has improved because there is a consciousness. The people, when they set up a project with the government or private sector, they believe, they take it into their project that, you have to connect it by rail also. So that itself, when you plan for it, it happens. So I think it has improved, but I think it can further improve because there are a lot of logistics issues in the connectivity. Rail connectivity is not easy all the time because, there are issues of land acquisition, creating of that, first getting it approved through the railways and then getting it done. So it takes time, but then, yeah, I think that's one of the things which can be further improved.
And Mr. Agarwal, beyond migration and beyond the issues you talk about, are there any other unresolved policy and regulatory issues?
No, I think by and large, rest is then onto the industry. Once, these policy issues are taken care of, and once funding institutions are there, then I think industry, the risk, overall risk perception which was there in terms of environmental issues and the land acquisitions, approvals have improved some bit. And I think, with the deregulation, the risk reduces a lot.
Great.
And I think we will be on a better footing.
Okay. What are your own priorities for Essar Ports for the next year or 2 years?
I think we are looking at improving or increasing our customer base in our existing terminals. And also we are looking at new opportunities which are there in the national pipeline where, some of the new biddings are there. So we are looking at that. I think we are not looking at any greenfield opportunities, I must say. But apart from that, we are looking at all opportunities, and we hope to grow in these lines.
Okay. Now, in terms of improving operational efficiency, what are the priorities for you, and what would you say for the industry as a whole, things that one should focus on?
I think there is a huge scope for looking at future and looking at the ESG initiatives which the companies have to take to reduce the carbon footprint, and it can be quite remunerative because it can reduce your power costs, it can reduce your overall efficiencies, it can improve your processes. So I think we also are making initiatives on that front, and also looking at the future cargoes in this area, like the hydrogen storage or LNG ports and LNG storage and transportation, and using vehicles and trucks which are energy efficient. So all of that, I think, is something which is a big opportunity, and it is something where the world is moving towards, and this is where we need to go. So I think we all have to plan that in the next 4 or 5 years, we have to look at the new world, because to some extent this movement may have slowed down because of COVID, the world over. But then I think it is going to come. This has also given time to people to do research, to get their views formed up, to get their plans formed up. And I think now huge new announcements, new initiatives are being have been seen and are coming every day. So I think we need to be cognizant and move towards that. So that's a big opportunity and a big threat.
Mr. Agarwal, a great deal of digital transformation or digital initiatives have been launched, some of them necessitated by COVID. Yeah. Which are the areas which we are still not doing enough, where you feel that port trusts need to do more so they can serve their customers better, where you can serve it so that you can serve your customers better?
I think while basic IT and digital usage is there in most of the companies, I think we need to go one step forward where we can connect everything on a platform. And I feel that in times to come, there will be a lot more connectivity and transparency and openness in the whole functioning. And I think some kind of a national grid for transportation could be created, right, where there is a complete synergy and connectivity on that. So I think that in our sector has not happened. While it may be there in railways or it may be there in airlines, there's international connectivity and everything is on a digital platform which can be tracked and seen and monitored. But in case of overall logistics in ports and on the not just ports but even other means of transportation is not there. Maybe there is a need, there is a vacuum there, and we need to work on that on a national level and on a company level also, whatever we can do to improve connectivity with our customers, digital platforms, and give them seamless service. And so there may be an opportunity in times to come for complete logistic solutions, etc.
And how can a program like Gati Shakti contribute to that?
I must say I have not really focused on that a little. So maybe I'll have to see that.
You're talking about multimodal, connectivity and
Sure. I think that is what is there. So we will have to see the details and see how it is being done. So I have not looked at it very closely at the moment. Yeah.
Mr. Agarwal, I'm going to talk about expectations in the end, although you alluded to some of them. But let me first ask you about the outlook for the sector. I think in general, you gave us an outlook total. But which segments in terms of, either commodities or which segments in terms of geographies do you expect more and where do you expect less next year? I'm not talking about Essar because Essar, of course, has a particular...
But I think... Yeah, because you see, if you look at the way exports have gone up, and we feel that maybe this trend may continue because we are hitting almost at an exit rate of $38 million billion dollars a month. So that maybe we can see that it could go to 450 next year or maybe more. The targets maybe 500 billion by the government, and who knows, it could be achieved. So there's a huge amount of there are a lot of new products which are getting included in the export basket. And when we talk about export basket, it not only goes out of India but also internal movement within the country, and it improves the overall movement for those products within the country also. So because the chain gets energized. So I think apart from agro products and the engineering products, then containerization. So I think the biggest growth would probably be in containerized and the perishable products and all that. Apart from again, commodities continue to do well. May not be necessarily only in terms of imports and exports, but also could be movement on the coast. So So we don't expect a decline as such in coal or in crude oil, etc. as yet. So which will continue to grow in its natural way, decent growth. But apart from that, these other new product lines definitely will grow, and there's a huge opportunity to grow on the coast, the cargo movement on the coast, in every category, which will definitely also reduce burden on the other railways and roads, etc. Yeah.
And what about geographies? Where will we see more growth? Towards east, towards west?
Well, typically, east is the resource-rich area of our country. So a lot of movement takes place of the mineral resources from the east and goes to the west, typically. And west is a large consumption center, and also exports from west are more than from the east coast. So one would tend to think that it is more of growth, maybe more for exports from west, and for large commodity movements from east will continue to grow too, because that has shown decent growth over the years.
And what about international trade in terms of destination countries or origin countries? More from Far East or less from Far East? And
yeah, means I think though we say that we are reducing our dependence on east countries on our east, but it is still growing. It's growing quite a lot. This year also we saw some data that it has gone up a lot. So that will remain, I think. Apart from that, I think our main exports are to the west. So that should continue.
And Mr. Agarwal, what are the key trends in the global shipping market that we should all be aware of?
I think, as we saw last year, was great for the shipping lines, and they made a lot of money because of various imbalances in the system. New ships are being ordered. So I think that will take some time, and I think freight rates should ease. And but overall, that also gives thoughts to for other smaller container lines to start, which has not really started in like big bulk or something movement and all that. So which could have been tried. We are not in the area, so we. But I think that's something which is a good opportunity, I think, for companies to do, or actually the freight consolidating companies backed by customers. And apart from that, I would say that I think there's a lot of change, or the world is going through a transition, as we all can see, towards different means of energy, and also a lot of digitization and new technologies. And so that definitely is going to make a lot of impact on the global Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is going to make its presence felt in the next few years in areas like defense, in semiconductors, in huge amount of growth in electronics we expect from our country. Because I think more than the energy needs, the electronics would have grown faster and been the major commodity for import, which probably in times to come we could contain with this initiative. So I think more and more countries will look at creating some near shore availability of raw material, of goods and services, so that they don't have to depend only on one country or two countries, they would like to broad base things in future with the kind of things which are the way the world is, geopolitical scenario is moving. So that also could be one of the trends.
Mr. Agarwal, my last question for you, although you mentioned a couple of things already in this regard, but what are your expectations from the government and the port trusts?
Are you talking about the budget, or are you talking about in general? Okay, yeah, I can talk about both.
Yeah, you can talk about both, yes.
Yeah, my expectation from the budget would be that this year now, I think this government has 2 more years of real work. I think unfortunately they lost 1 year or 1.5 years to COVID, but though the government kept working and they did some good things, but I would say that these 2 years they have to they can catch up a lot, and the targets of 5 trillion economy and all of those could be achieved. We need to push some new areas like semiconductors and others, which can add hugely to the economy, and some new energy initiatives like hydrogen and batteries, etc. And those can also add hugely to the economy. Apart from that, we need to spur consumption, because though consumption is holding on, but we also hear that it could be better. If this growth rate has to be maintained, it needs to be better. So I think more availability of money in the hands of people, and which could be by way of rationalization of personal taxation, and initiatives on spurring investments, because I think investments have been slowed down a little bit. So those 2 things are very important, which the government has to look at from the ports point of view or infrastructure point of view. Again, investments, how to bring large-scale investments back into focus is one thing. A lot of companies, of course, large companies have been announcing it, but I think with the issues of NPAs that the government and the banks faced the last few years, that had slowed down. Now the banks have cleaned up. I think the banks are quite healthy. Consolidation of banking sector has taken place, and they're coming up with good results. So I think some mechanism has to be developed so that they can do safe lending. So maybe the commercial banks may not take project risks, so they will have to, they can subscribe to bonds raised by infrastructure fund, which could lend to the infrastructure companies. So one intermediary infrastructure organization or institution has to be created, or few have to be created, maybe 2 or 3 have to be created by the government, which could funnel funds from the banking and the other sectors like life insurance, etc., and the public, and then that could be used for this, and where the interest rates also have to be attractive, because at the end of the day you are helping the government to reduce its budgetary spend if private sector comes up. So I think that is what these are some of the initiatives that I'd like to see from government in the budget and in general, which will help. So apart from that, on the reform side, I think they are happening, and some of the major things have happened in the port sector, which we had asked for. And I think the Maritime India Vision 2030, and then I think there is another one in the making, which is for the next 20 years, 2047. So I think these are things which will set the perspective, and we all will contribute in that to see that it's a robust thing, and whatever initiatives have to be taken for a modern India in times to come will see the light of the day.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Mr. Agarwal. We are so glad you were able to join us, because we definitely wanted you to be there one form or the other. Safe travels, Mr. Agarwal.
Thank you very much.
See you in person very, very soon.
Yes, sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
sir. Iqbal, you can stop recording. Thank you, sir.
So